Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 694 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened over the last week across NXT and AEW. But not only that, we are cleaning out the notebook. We will be talking TNA Genesis, New Japan Wrestle Kingdom 19, and New Japan Wrestle Dynasty. The Silver King has finally watched all of these shows, taken some relatively brief notes about all of them, and we will discuss it before this program is out. As I've mentioned on the show before, I will be headed to Nolans later this week, really on Sunday, for the Super Bowl. So next week's shows are going to be chaotic the way we put them together. I wanted to make sure the notebook was clear going into SmackDown on Friday night, obviously the go-home show for the 2025 WWE Royal Rumble. I wanted to make sure the notebook was completely cleared out and we could start fresh on Super Bowl week. Off the top, allow me quickly to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. I also wanted to let you know that the Sports Podcast Awards were indeed announced on Thursday, just a couple hours before we taped the show. Unfortunately, Getting Over did not win. We finished third, but close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, not awards. And we, of course, were not on top. Nevertheless, greatly appreciate all of your support, everyone who took time to vote for us. What can I say? We'll get them next year. All it takes is one award to call yourself an award-winning show. We got that coming out of 2023 into 2024. Hopefully we can get it again coming out of 2025 into 2026. Now, the way this show is going to work, we're going to go in this order. We're actually going to start with TNA Genesis just because it has somewhat of a relationship to NXT and some of the things that are happening on NXT. Then we will break down NXT. We'll shift over to the 2 New Japan shows, and then we will discuss the entire week in AEW. If time allows, and if the ratings are completely out at the end of the show, we will have a ratings conversation, but that is to be determined. It just depends how quickly we tape the show and when that gets released. So there will be timestamps in the episode description, as there always are. You can jump around if you want. If you really don't want to hear anything about TNA or New Japan, you theoretically could skip, but I certainly hope you don't, because the breakdowns are pretty damn quick. And again, a lot of it is related to characters and storylines and things that you happen to be seeing on NXT television. Let me also remind you that you can subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast, not only for the complete audio of all of our shows, but we are posting interview clips and other videos on YouTube at Getting Overcast. We would greatly appreciate you viewing them. We're trying to rack up our viewing hours. That way we can monetize the channel. And once we can do that, we're going to start considering other options, full interviews right after they get published on the podcast, maybe even entire podcast episodes on video, the Silver King and Vintage in the flesh. But it all starts with you subscribing and watching the YouTube channel at Getting Overcast. I'll also remind you to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and at Getting Over on Blue Sky for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can also send in questions and comments for the show. And on Saturday, you'll be able to vote in our pre- and post-show polls for the 2025 WWE Royal Rumble. We'll, of course, post one before and then another after it goes on the air. And your votes will be included in our 2025 WWE Royal Rumble Instant Analysis Podcast, which you certainly do not want to miss Saturday night. Speaking of shows you do not want to miss, don't forget, we have that 2025 WWE Royal Rumble Ultimate Preview already waiting for you in the podcast feed. Be sure to hit all of that up. So let's quickly talk about TNA Genesis. Some general thoughts from the show. Production value higher than expected. The highlighter yellow ring ropes, they were horrendous. I did like that they were thematic, but it made watching the matches way tougher than necessary. The Anthem Sports and Entertainment logo being in like the middle of the hard cam shot on the barricade, that was an eyesore. How can the parent company be of primary importance here? It doesn't make any sense. It came across as low rent. Overall, Genesis was the best TNA pay-per-view I have seen in a long time. That's not saying it was the best ever or even the best recently. I have seen a tiny percentage of TNA pay-per-views. None in the past, like back in the day, and very few recently. I'm actually catching up on some old TNA. There's a channel on Fubo TV. I think they have it on Roku as well. It's an Impact Wrestling channel that just airs a mishmash of TNA stuff. So I've seen like old AJ Styles and all this stuff that I'd never seen before. So I'm kind of catching up in just random order on things that used to happen in TNA, but by no means am I a long-term TNA watcher. So I just wanted to put that out there. I did feel that the three big matches all delivered on this show. Moose, Ace Austin, that was a fun opener. Mike Santana beating Josh Alexander in an I Quit match. I thought it was the second best match on the entire show. There was a crazy back body drop out of the ring through a table there. I didn't like a finisher no sell late, but the quitting sequence with Alexander was great. He didn't just quit for the match, he quit the territory. I went 4 stars, A- for that. Santana was really impressive. Fraxium surprised as ringside onlookers for the Hardys against the Rascals for the tag team titles. Hardys retained those. There was physical involvement. That set up a Fraxium Rascals match that previously never happened and I believe is going down on TNA television, or maybe it already did. So again, I'm still trying to catch up a little bit. Masha Slamovich beat Rosemary in something called a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. Basically just immensely hardcore. It was fun, chaotic though. Cora Jade confronted when it was over, and I believe that match against Masha is happening on TV soon for the TNA Knockouts Championship. So the 2 matches that I wanted to discuss. TNA Championship, Nick Nemeth defending against Joe Hendry. This main evented. There were a couple great midair counters from both guys. Hendry hit an avalanche fallaway slam when Frankie Kazarian came in with like a trophy that I presume operated the same as Money in the Bank, just the way people reacted to it. JBL stormed out of the crowd to negate that threat with a clothesline from hell. Then he punched Nemeth's brother, which was apparently a callback of some kind. Hendry hit his standing ovation finisher for a 2.8. Nemeth caught him with Danger Zone, the zigzag, for a 2.9 false finish. Hendry countered a charging super kick with a fall-away slam and then hit a second standing ovation to win the TNA title. This was quite a freaking moment. 3 months later than it should have happened, but it happened nonetheless, and it seems like they were telling some kind of story with Nemeth to get there. 3.75 stars, B+ for the match. An awesome crowd reaction to a booking that was really a long time coming. His parents were there. A bunch of fans had signs and celebrated in the crowd with all of them as the show ended. It was just a lot of fun to be had all around. It does make me wonder like whether Hendry's actually going to show up in the Royal Rumble. For a long time, I believed that would be the case. But given how many names they've announced, the fact that there's still a ton of superstars that should get into it, ideally there would be a couple surprises as well. And Hendry is nowhere near as hot as he was a year ago or even 6 months ago. It makes me think that it's less likely to happen, but we might see him on Saturday. We will see. Jordan Grace, someone that we very well may see Saturday, fought Tessa Blanchard. It was amazing to me that Tessa's entrance music was better than at least a third of the WWE themes, maybe more. Perhaps I'm wrong since I don't watch weekly, but Jordan's muscle mass seemed to be significantly down from its peak, which was probably positive. This was absolute fire out of the gate. Grace had a jackhammer ringside, an avalanche follow his slam, a package powerbomb. Blanchard came back with a double underhook Canadian destroyer. That was wild. Grace hit a rolling Death Valley driver off the steel steps. Blanchard countered her off the ropes with an avalanche crucifix bomb. The finish was Tessa exposing a turnbuckle, hitting a bulldog into it, and delivering Magnum, I think is what it's called, a flying code breaker for the win. Match of the night, one of the best matches of the year so far. Easily the leader in the clubhouse for women's match of the year through 1 month. Tessa deserves the hate and scorn that she gets for her locker room attitude and supposedly the racist shit that she said and never apologized for, despite, by the way, having plenty of opportunities. There's simultaneously no question that she's a tremendous in-ring performer and one of the best Americans in the world, which is why it's so frustrating that she's basically thrown away a potential main event career in WWE or AEW by saying what she said and then refusing to apologize for it. I went 4.5 stars in an A. This was an awesome match. The finish wasn't as good as the match itself, just the way it transpired. But, I mean, this is a match you go out of your way to see. And if you haven't seen it, you absolutely should. Maka Baird at Maka Baird on Twitter said, with the NXT deal, what do you think of Roxanne and Cora winning the Knockouts tag team titles and working both shows? Also going the other way, can you think of anybody in TNA that should win a championship in NXT? Those Knockouts tag team titles would actually be a great usage of Roxy and Cora. Get them a lot of extra experience in TNA, which they both need. Give Perez more time to develop across 2 shows, and she's going to need that individually if she's going to get called up soon. It works as a diversion for Roxy out of the top of the NXT women's division. It gets the tag team titles regularly in NXT, where there's a bunch of women's tag teams that can challenge for them. It actually works all the way around. It's a great idea. I just don't know if TNA wants to put one of its titles on an NXT talent. And to answer your question the other way, I'm pretty damn sure NXT would not put any of its titles on a TNA talent despite the relationship. Before we fully get out of TNA, apparently on their TV show last week, Stephanie DeLander announced that she now holds the Digital Media Championship, which she won via divorce from PCO, who left the territory and actually destroyed a replica of the title in GCW. That's another story for another day. But the reason I bring this up is because a title changing hands via divorce is like an all-timer for me. That is absolutely brilliant creative in a tough situation. And I don't know who came up with that idea or who put it on television, but genius. So credit where it's due. That is all. So moving out of TNA, we will flip it to NXT. And actually, before we get to that, I would love to remind you that on this show,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reaction audios to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. You can get all of it. Support the continuation of the show financially. We would greatly appreciate it by going to buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. So on to NXT. It aired from Center Stage in Atlanta. Obviously, a lot of history there, particularly with WCW. It was apparently sold out at 800 tickets, but there were some empty seats at the start, maybe late arrivals, people moving around. But it was kind of funny how Vic Joseph opened the show talking about fans on their feet, and the camera panned and showed like 20 people just sitting there quietly. So, you kind of want to work that properly, and the camera needed to do a better job there. It was not a fantastic opening shot for the show. Bayley and Julia fought Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade. This opened. The heels dominated early with Roxy mocking Bayley, doing her old hugger-like mannerisms. Then she hit a double jump springboard moonsault. Bayley to belly was hit on Cora, who later caught Roxy with friendly fire. Bayley threw Roxy into the barricade. Julia knocked Jade down with a headbutt, and Bayley hit the flying elbow drop for the 1-2-3. Fun opening match. Nothing too spectacular. All 4 worked well together. This is the type of match that can really help develop neophyte wrestlers. Loved that Bayley won with the flying elbow drop, which is way better than either of her other finishers, the old one or the current one. And let's also not forget, it takes a shit all over the Rose Plant. In fact, doing the Rose Plant to knock the competitor down in the corner and then hitting the elbow drop is a way better sequence than probably anything Bayley's ever had. So let's hope this is her moveset or her finishing set going forward. Ava backstage was in the midst of announcing Julia's next challenger for Vengeance Day when the heels popped in with Roxy angry that she hasn't even gotten her rematch yet. Then she blamed Cora on getting pinned in their tag team match. Ava calmed her down, announcing they would actually be wrestling in a triple threat, but Jade was angry that Perez dissed her and that, of course, she got left out of the match. She later demanded to speak to Ava. Bayley getting the title match is interesting, just given her entire feud to this point has been with Roxy, so you would expect her to fight Roxanne. But from the standpoint of like top tier competition, it does work. And it should be an awesome triple threat involving these 3, though it also tells us Bayley ain't winning the Royal Rumble again, even though we probably already knew that would be the case. Leads me to believe that Bayley and Roxanne Perez will be the match for Stand and Deliver. They're going to push it off till there and do other machinations of it. Again, just a guess. Regarding Cora being upset here, let's not forget, she punched Roxy in the face. So Perez was upset at her coming out of the match. So when she didn't feel bad that she wasn't included in this title match, and by the way, Jade has no reason to be, given she's won like one match since returning from injury, it all kind of made logical sense, even if they perhaps did not necessarily plan it that way. The Women's Tag Team Championship main evented the show. Bianca Belair and Naomi defending against the Metagirls, Lash Legend, and Jakara Jackson. Crowd popped big for Belair and Legend, especially after a double kip up between them.
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
Lash hit a full cartwheel handspring moonsault. That was a great spot. Naomi took her out with a blockbuster. Bianca murdered Jakara with a couple power moves. Legend escaped Kiss of Death and then knocked Belair outside. Jackson leveled her with a tope suicida. Metagirls caught Naomi with their wheelbarrow cutter finisher, only for Bianca to save the fall. She speared Jakara, only for Naomi to half counter a Lash powerbomb into an X Factor. I don't believe they did like the whole standing on the shoulders move during this match. If they did, I missed it. But I think I recently mentioned they need to cut that out because it takes so long to develop. And I believe that's exactly what happened here. Naomi escaped a finisher redo. Bianca drove Lash into the steel steps. Naomi was late reversing a rollover pinning combination for what should have been a 3 count. Fans oohed and booed at the moment, but the champions hit a double team KOD that was a bit clunky to retain the titles. I watched the replay of this finish about 20 times. It's an awesome near fall. The truth is, if you want to Zapruder film the whole deal, Naomi's shoulders were not down for the 1 count. She was on the back of her neck. So it was only like a 2.5 count at most. And I still believe Naomi rotated at like 2.999. So they actually didn't get screwed in kayfabe or reality, but obviously no one cares about the technicality of it all or the facts. They saw the referee messed up, or they believed the referee messed up, and they want to get on them about it. I didn't think it was actually a major botch, or perhaps even a botch at all. It perhaps was not the smoothest match, but these 4 ladies ate. Big time spots for each of them. Bianca and Naomi were clearly working hard to get the youngsters over. Lash has hit a groove and is definitely accelerating. Jakara is getting better. She still needs improvement. It's going to be curious to see what happens from here on out, just given there's so many women's tag teams on this roster. There were a lot of folks who thought a change was coming here. That never made sense to me before WrestleMania season, taking the women's tag team titles, putting them on an NXT team, even if you were calling them up. They're fresh faces. If you're going to do something like that, do it at WrestleMania. Put them over huge. Don't do it, in the last week of January. 3 other big takeaways. 1, the Metagirls got fans to boo Bianca Belair and Naomi, of all people. No one boos them ever. That's how over they are in NXT right now. 2, it should not be overlooked that 4 black women main evented TV and got the biggest reactions of the entire night, which is, of course, amazing. 3, maybe NXT should bring back the women's tag team titles. I love how they move between brands and actually do touch NXT regularly these days, unlike in the past. But there are so many teams on this brand, and there seem to be some good teams developing on the main roster. I don't really know what they're going to do, but for the first time in a long time, there's enough teams to really fill out this division. And it still feels like the women's tag team titles don't get enough run, or when they do, there's not enough story behind them. So that does need to be worked on. Grayson Waller Effect had Oba Femi as a guest. Austin Theory got chance as Oba was speaking. Of course, being in Atlanta, that would be the case. They insulted Femi basically for being a flash in the pan. Oba shot back that he's accomplished more in 2 years than both of them combined in NXT. Fans chanted, "Turn on Grayson" at Theory. So Austin actually got like a ha out of me because he just turned his back and he said, "See, I turned on him." I wonder if that's been like a house show chant. If not, great improv. This led to Femi offering an open challenge to either of A-Town Down Under to fight him for the title at Vengeance Day. Waller was in the process of stepping forward, despite Theory seemingly wanting it. Trick Williams was pacing, watching this on a split screen. He entered behind Ava, who was already out there, reminding Oba that he doesn't get to make the matches. Trick knocked the heels out of the ring. Oba then caught him blind with Fall from Grace to end the segment. It was clunky as hell. It hit for me because it was so fun to see everyone so uncomfortable trying to make it work. If that makes sense, that just doesn't mean it was smooth, because it was not smooth at all. The small crowd here hijacked parts of it, but the guys were all able to think well on their feet. Here were my thoughts coming out of it. Femi Waller would not be a PLE match. Femi Theory could be, but that's also a potential mid-card title feud like in a few years on the main roster. I'm not sure I'd want Oba to get a win over Austin as a one-off in 2025. Similarly, don't want a Trick rematch right away, but it's possible they're building this as a series all the way to Stand and Deliver. So at this moment, my thought in my head was, let's see what happens over the rest of the show. We had Trick against Wes Lee. This followed Femi's attack on Williams. Wes dyed the top of his hair. He may have also twisted it up a bit, but that was tough to tell. Point being, it looked way better than the generic cut he was initially rocking. Trick ate a Meteora from Wes, flying off the apron into the announce table early. Williams came back with a huge bookend. Then he pulled Tyson DuPont into the ring, only to throw him out and then toss Lee into him. He also clotheslined both of them, jumping off the stage. DuPont came in again, trying to attack Trick, only to get punched. Williams then shoved the referee aside and got disqualified, only to basically hit DuPont with Trouble in Paradise into a chair before completely losing his mind and slamming a chair on the ring, on the ropes. It almost ricocheted and hit him in the face. Someone needs to teach him not to do that. But he went nuts. I absolutely freaking loved this entire segment, start to finish. It's the most interesting Williams has been in months. His temper tantrum was a bit overdramatic, but this started with a high energy match and it moved into a character building segment with Trick's emotions getting the best of him. What I wondered was why Tyreek Igwe didn't get involved at all when both of his boys were getting their asses kicked. I presume he's not cleared or something like that, but it was odd. Wes remains immensely underrated, especially the way he bumps and sells for bigger guys. One of the best segments involving the men in NXT in a long ass time. Oba approached Ava backstage after this. She read him the riot act about making matches, so he demanded to know who he would be fighting for his title. Ava decided it would be Waller when Femi cut her off, saying good, but she finished clarifying it would also be Theory in a triple threat. Ava then stormed into the men's locker room to run down Trick for freaking out in the match. She informed him that he's not in the title match, which led to Williams demanding to know what those guys did to deserve it. Great question, Trick. Ava said if he didn't think they deserved it, he could fight them in a tag team match, partnering with Femi next week. She did not indicate here or afterward, because there was an interview later, that he could play himself into the match. I think that's the expectation, to go with a four-way. I can't imagine it not being the case and just running Femi against those other two guys. I went from thinking this was the best possible booking, as it at least makes you believe there's a slim chance one of the guys can beat him 2-on-1 with an advantage. And it also possibly hastens their split, which we've obviously expected for a while, even if it never happened, even if they just moved to Raw as a team. But my problem with it was that Waller, in theory, didn't actually do anything to deserve the opportunity. So I'm glad that was at least addressed by Ava and Trick. The idea of basically making this a four-way when we have a triple threat already on the show with the women, and we also have a triple threat earlier this month for the title, it felt repetitive and also a way to excuse an Oba retention in a match with Trick. I'd have liked her to book them in like some qualifiers beat, an upper mid-card or on NXT or on a shot for the title, and all of you have an opportunity to do so, but they're not going in that direction. What's hysterical is how we have been getting after Ava on this show about being a pushover for really the better part of a month or two. And now suddenly she's a hard ass standing her ground when setting title matches. That's one of those deals that you're like, I wonder, you know? Cedric Alexander fought Ethan Page. Ced went right after him at the bell. Ethan ripped a protective cast off his injured hand and then slammed it into the ring post. Alexander came back with a snap German suplex, Michinoku driver, brainbuster, and Koji clutch. Page broke it by going after the hand a few times and hitting a really emphatic twist of fate to get the win. Javon Evans again saved post-match. He did a tope off the stage into the ring. He ducked Page's fist and straight up slugged him across the face with a haymaker to stand tall. If I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. Cedric Alexander is immensely underrated. Guy balls out every single time he is in the ring, and you saw it again here with Page. I would have liked another few minutes, but there was great work both ways. Page got a necessary win to continue rebuilding him with this new gimmick. The Evans post-match was crazy energetic as usual. Seeing Javon get one up on Evans was positive, but since dude's mouth was bleeding last week and he's still all wired shut, It does feel like this is a bit rushed. He probably should have been completely out of action for like 4 to 6 weeks at a minimum. Page is doing his best work in NXT ever since he's taken this adjusted character on, and I really cannot wait to see where this goes with him. The Women's North American Championship was on the line. Fallon Henley defending against Shotzi. Early Hurricanrana off the ropes by Shotzi, who then splashed all 3 women ringside before the seconds all battled to the back. Henley caught a Shotzi kick and banged her injured knee into the ring post before taking it out and later using a stretch muffler. Shotzi came back with sliced bread and a flying senton, kind of ass to crotch. It looked gnarly. Fallon caught her in a tree of woe, stomped her head, and then hit an interesting modified exploder suplex before adding the hoedown, a famouser, for the win. Quite a name for a finisher, but at least it's a name.
Thank you!
Hell of a match between these two. Fallon is 100% ready for the main roster. Been ready, actually. I could do without this whole cowpoke gimmick, especially now that she's moved past that. Let her in-ring skill and moveset shine. It's extremely strong. She also needs a better finisher, but it was still improved from some of the other crap that she's done. B-level match, a lot of fun from bell to bell. Stephanie Vaquer entered as Henley was celebrating. That cemented their title match for Vengeance Day in just 2 weeks. This was obvious just given the way the booking transpired, but that match, when it happens, is absolutely going to be a
banger.
And it's going to happen on a big show. Henley backstage was in the midst of cutting a promo on Vaquer when JC Jane cut her off, saying they would take Stephanie out, especially given she attacked JC last week. Fallon said she would try to get a match made between them, which JC didn't necessarily love, but came to accept just because she wants vengeance herself. Another segment in which it was not assumed Ava would just approve a match. Definite steps in the right direction. Also sensible booking leading into the title bout. As far as Fatal Influence goes, you want to know how much cohesion this group has?
0.0.
Fallon is completely miscast. They all seem like oddballs grouped together for no reason. JC has completely lost her fastball. She can easily get it back, but what she's doing right now is not working. And Jasmine Nix is just there. And she's even wearing a face mask now. I guess she broke her nose or hurt something in her face. It's the same mask that JC was wearing, so it's all convoluted. Regarding Shotzi's group, they may or may not be called Chemical X. I know they have those shirts, and that's a reference to the Powerpuff Girls. Not sure if they can get a trademark for that, but it's interesting, and it is a great name if they actually are able to use it. Carmen Petrovic thanked Kalani Jordan for helping her against Jada Parker last week. Lonnie clarified she did it for herself, saying Carmen was clearly deluded, and it's only a matter of time before Shanti the Adonis leaves her ass. So Petrovic turned around, called her a bitch as she left. Well, you know what? She was being a total bitch. Really for no reason whatsoever, so that was deserved. Eddie Thorpe got a promo package saying he's been overlooked like other Native Americans, but he's now proved that he belongs. He promised to make his mark in NXT and refused to be broken. Outside of it sounding way scripted, it was well produced, somewhat believable from Thorpe. He was wearing darker colors, seemingly taking even more of a heel turn coming out of the loss. It just really has not hit with him the way I expected it to, and it's the believability on his promos that are truly the biggest issue, because in the ring, he can go. He's perfectly fine in the ring. The character work, the promos, all of that, it's really not working to this point. Josh Briggs had a conversation with Yoshiki and Amora backstage, saying he made his excursion in Japan special, so he has a leather jacket for him as his official partner welcoming him to America. Briggs promised they would get to Fraxium and win a title. Inamura thanked him for going back on his goal to make it on his own, just to team with him and fulfill a dream. It's a positive step for this storyline, just given the absurdity of them trying to claim a title opportunity, despite even still now, after another week, never having a match on NXT television. It's frustrating that Briggs has gone back on his plan to wrestle as a single, but at least they explained it, and clearly this was a plans change situation coming out of Japan. We will see how much it ultimately bears fruit. Izzy Dame got an Okerlund position promo saying nothing is going on with her and the D'Angelo family. She just repaid a favor. Ridge Holland popped in calling bullshit. Stack stepped up to get in his face, and they got separated with relative ease, like two dudes just lightly pushing them back. Nothing here, obviously. Same stuff we discussed last week. Left a lot to be desired. And NXT ended with a TV color pattern test that was obviously a teaser for Vengeance Day, surely marking the debut or return of a superstar. My first thought is Noam Dar. I'm not sure there's anyone else who immediately makes sense unless it's just a debuting performance center talent that they really believe in and they're trying to get over off the bat. But generally, they don't do teasers like this for someone like that. Another option is a call up from the main roster. I should say a call over from the main roster. But again, right off the top, there's no one that immediately comes to mind for that role. NXT, super entertaining as always. A blistering 2-hour show in terms of the amount of stuff fit into that window. They're really building strong for NXT Vengeance Day. The title matches set for that show are fantastic. You already have 3 of them, and surely you're going to get some other non-title matches and additional stuff on there. So yeah, Vengeance Day building extremely well. NXT continuing to do well when it holds shows away from the WWE Performance Center. They just announced another one for Cincinnati. Yeah, things are hot, and the ratings are hot as well. Again, if we have time later, we will go over those. Now, AEW is coming up, but let's first quickly get through some New Japan Pro Wrestling, starting with Wrestle Kingdom 19. What was clearly missing from this show was star power, as evidenced by the main event. It was a damn good show overall, 3 high-quality matches. I just struggled to have the same investment in the product that I once did, even as an occasional viewer. Mayu Iwatani retained her IWGP Women's title over AZM in a 9-minute barn burner that ended with a fantastic sequence of pinning counters. Second or third best women's match of the year to this point, 4 stars A-. El Phantasmo won the NJPW World TV title in a 4-way match. What's notable here is he came back from a cancer diagnosis to get a big moment. Action was strong. Hiroshi Tanahashi beat Evil in 15 minutes. Bit excruciating, just given spat of interference and how Ace lumbers around the ring. Not a bad match, and he's a big star on a big show, but Prez has slowed down massively. This being his retirement year, it's necessary. It's just a shame that we'll never actually wind up getting Ace and then John Cena head-to-head. I loved the finish with Evil having the upper hand, but Ace countering the pinfall late. Katsuyori Shibata saved a post-match attack, getting one of the best pops of the entire night. He offered a friendly challenge for Tanahashi the next night, which also got a big pop. Tetsuya Naito beat Hiromu Takahashi in 17 minutes, and you can literally copy and paste what I just said about Tanahashi, but add a lot more emphasis for Naito. This dude is absolutely cooked. He needs long-term rest and rehab at a minimum just to try and get going again. So 3 matches to discuss really from the show. The first, Konosuke Takeshita defending his AEW International Championship against Shingo Takagi, who was defending his Never Openweight Championship, title versus title. This went precisely as you would expect. Lots of tremendous wrestling bell to bell. It didn't really heat up for me until late. Takagi kicked out of Blue Thunderbomb. Takeshita's neck nearly got snapped on like a half-botched move. They exchanged Poison Rana no-sells. Takeshita hit an awesome running forearm plus another Blue Thunderbomb to become the double champion. Takagi remains awesome. Takeshita is incredible at his age. 4.25 stars in an A. The IWGP Global Championship, David Finlay against Yota Tsui, I believe is how you say his name, and I apologize if I got that wrong. I was a bit less connected to this match, just I wasn't really that familiar, clearly, with Yota, but they put on a barn burner. Yota hit a spear to win the title, but Finlay was exceptional throughout. He's put together a string of high-quality matches since around September or October. This was easily his best. You could even call it a breakout moment, kind of, for him, despite it coming in defeat. If you wind up watching this show, don't skip over just because you may not know them. 4.25 stars in an A. I might actually be underselling it a little bit. IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, Zack Sabre Jr. defending against Shota Umino. There's a line in The Office from Bob Odenkirk. He's talking about Curb Your Enthusiasm, where he critiques this iconic half-improv show by saying the actors indulge themselves a little too much. That could basically be used to describe this match. Couple great wrestlers, quality match. This shit did not need to be 44 minutes. And it was not the right main event, despite it being the top title. It was forced into that spot. It was built like an epic, despite neither guy having the gravitas to make it one. It was boring. I'm not sure I can use the word plotting to describe any other match in the future, because it perfectly described this one. It seemed like the goal was to push Shota as the new ace, but he is not there yet. His selling left a lot to be desired. You cut 15 and 20 minutes off this and condense the action, you're talking about maybe an A-level match. The finish was hot. It got a rise out of the crowd late, but more of the match should have been like the finish, is probably the best way I can put it. 3.5 stars and a B. I don't ever remember a Wrestle Kingdom main event getting a rating that low from yours truly. Let's move over to Wrestle Dynasty. Tanahashi and Shibata fought to a time limit draw in a planned 5-minute match. They chopped the ever-loving shit out of each other. It was actually pretty cool. Finlay beat Brody King, basically getting his win back from the night prior. Brody really should do a G1 or something in New Japan. He is perfect for it. I went 3.75 stars B+ for this. Shota beat Claudio Castagnoli with Death Rider in a match of Jon Moxley's young boy against his partner. As with Finlay, this was a New Japan loser from Wrestle Kingdom getting a win back against an AEW talent the next night. Some nice action, a B match. The Young Bucks won the IWGP Tag Team titles in a 3-way over Takahashi and Naito and United Empire as the other team. They wore pearl necklaces for some reason. They looked like their old selves in this match. Maybe it's going to rejuvenate them to a degree. You all know the Bucks have never been my bag at all, but it's been a while since they worked like this. Jack Perry lost an IWGP Global title match to Yoda. Why he even got the chance, who the hell knows? It was the worst match on the entire show, without question. Look, Jack Perry is not going to happen.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
3 matches to talk about here, just like the other show. Mercedes Moné defending the NJPW Strong Women's Championship against Mina Shirakawa, who was defending the Rev Pro British title. Again, championship versus championship. Mercedes had a nice lung blower before Mina got a flurry of offense, including a figure 4 and a false finish on a glamorous driver. Monet Maker ultimately ended it as expected, with Mercedes taking both titles, which you have now seen on TV ever since this happened. This was borderline for me. 3.75 stars B+. There just wasn't that much drama to the match. If there was, I would have gone to the A- part. Mercedes has truly shaken off the rust, though. She's operating at her normal top tier level right now. Match after match, she's just delivering high quality wrestling, and it's great to see her doing that. The AEW International Championship and Never Openweight Championship were both on the line as Takeshita fought Tomohiro Ishii. This was a brilliant match. These guys went to absolute war. The physicality was tremendous. Ishii wrestling a match like this at age 49 was ridiculous. It was the young gun overcoming the old guard, with Ishii putting takeover in a meaningful way. Obviously, the overt no selling in stretches is always going to bother me, but this was the real shit right here. Must-watch match. 4.25 stars A. Thought it would be the best match that I watched on all of these shows until I got to another match on this show. Kenny Omega against Gabe Kidd. By the way, I'm realizing I lied. We're going to cover 4 matches. Kenny Omega against Gabe Kidd. Commentary at the start of this was absolutely unhinged, referring to Tony Khan as a money mark, taking away New Japan's talent for AEW. Now I understand why that color commentary dude was suspended, even if he wasn't totally wrong. Omega powerbombed Kidd over the barricade through a table. Then he did a springboard tope over the barricade into him. Absolutely sick. Kidd had like half a crimson mask. He responded with chair body shots going after his intestines, brainbuster into a table, and a broken piece of the table over Omega's head. He bladed, Kenny did, into a full crimson mask. Unprotected headshots both ways. Obviously, I don't love those. Avalanche release, double underhook suplex, and fairy tale ending by Omega. One-winged angel countered into an abdominal stretch. Powerbomb and V-trigger for a 1 count. Kamagoye and one-winged angel for the Omega win. Incredible shot after this was over of Tanahashi on commentary crying that Omega was back, won the match, kind of stood up in some ways for New Japan and the old guard. Man, it was awesome. Still real to him, damn it, I promise you. Simply tremendous match. For this to be a comeback match for Kenny, it just tells you that Omega is still the best wrestler in the world. Will Ospreay has tons of flash and skill. He's amazing. He's young, talented. Bryan Danielson is a technical marvel. Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes draw with immense popularity. Kazuchika Okada is the prototypical professional wrestler. Omega is the absolute best. The top match of January 2025, an early contender for match of the year. Kid has major like Conor McGregor vibes, and he undoubtedly leveled up. There's just a realism to everything that it does in the ring. He's a true brawler. 4.75 stars. A+. Loved this match. The IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, Sabre against Ricochet. This main evented its shit all over the prior night's match. hot out of the gate. Ricochet missed a 630, eating a PK and Zack driver coming back. Ricochet eventually tapped out in a butterfly style submission. 4 stars, A-. Extremely well wrestled. Pretty cool that Ricochet main evented a Tokyo Dome show. So you can say what you will about his character in AEW and what he's doing over there, although I'm enjoying it. I think he's doing a lot better recently. But this dude, just a couple months after leaving WWE, main evented the Tokyo Dome. He's still an incredible wrestler. No question about that. That takes us out of New Japan and into AEW, where we are now doing 4 hours of TV per week. And hopefully that is all we have to do, because it's much better than 5 and way, way better those occasional times where we had to do 6 or more. Collision was better than Dynamite this week. Not by much. Really, it just had one big angle, which of course we will talk about in a moment. It came across to me like there were way more recaps on Dynamite than you might even get on an episode of Raw or SmackDown. It was really odd, especially because most of the recaps weren't really helping like remind you of story beats or anything like that. It was just, here's action that happened a couple days ago. Dynamite ultimately felt like a bunch of nothing. I guess you'd call it like mid, because it wasn't bad. Well, parts of it were bad, but the show as a whole was fine. It just wasn't really anything. So that's the best way I can describe it. There were 11 matches across the two shows. Actually, a lot of storyline development type of segments and also brawling segments that were meant to be like matches, but weren't actually matches. But 11 matches, 7 of them were storyline relevant. So you're at 64%, which I'm going to count as hitting a 66% threshold. That's 2/3, basically. If that was 8 out of 12, if there was one more match, you're hitting that 2/3 threshold. And that's exactly what we want from AEW. It made watching those individual matches far more interesting. Even the matches that we perhaps did not necessarily enjoy, there was at least a reason to see what happened in the finish and then consider what that means going forward, as opposed to just random people fighting each other because it might be a good match or because you need to get someone a win. So huge step in the right direction. We will see if that keeps up. On Collision, there was an extended vignette for the Don Callis family having a dinner. Callis told them Kenny Omega is bloodthirsty and lacking empathy, and the alliance with Will Ospreay is not allowed to happen. Brian Cage pointed out that they have a 5-on-2 advantage. So what's the problem? Callis put over this version of Omega, and he smirked at the contention that there's only 5 of them, perhaps alluding to them adding more. A little bit over the top, but I appreciated that AEW did something different and played into the family aspect of this group. On Collision, the International Championship was on the line. Takeshita retained over Shibata in 13 minutes. Callis grabbed Shibata's boot, but he rolled up take for the 2.9 and then kicked out at 1 on a Blue Thunder Bomb. You know I hate that. So he had a forearm and another Blue Thunder Bomb for the win. It was easily the match of Saturday night. Really good work by both men. On Dynamite, Ospreay beat Cage with Styles Clash in the opening match. Omega was shown attacked backstage before it even began. Lance Archer directly interfered in front of the referee, but of course Rick Knox chose not to throw him out because that would make sense. Archer attacked after the bell, as per usual, and Excalibur told us fans were chanting for Omega to save. While they were somewhat loud for the finish, Ospreay winning, and they did boo the initial attack, no one was audibly chanting for Omega. That's not to say they don't like him and wouldn't chant for him. It was just simply fiction. But Omega did save, and he got a big pop. He threw a chair straight at Cage's head. Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher then attacked 4-on-2, hitting stereo cradle tombstone pile drivers. And it seemed like the segment over. Their music played. But then they attacked again, despite never leaving the ring, with Omega selling his intestines. Then the music played again. Omega tried to grab their legs like someone would do if they're grasping for straws, kind of. So they attacked him a third time, just a couple stomps. And the music turned off again, and then Ospreay covered Omega's body. And then the music played again. Everything was fine, but it was illogical after that first attack. Apparently, by the way, none of the other baby faces backstage could give a single shit about the 2 most over guys on the roster getting their asses kicked in an extended segment. Not 1 attack, 3 attacks. Not even Mark Davis, who's still friends with Ospreay. Could you imagine no one coming out to help Cody Rhodes from a faction attack? The second and third wave of this were mind-numbing. Plus, why did Callis say 5-on-2 was not enough of an advantage if just a couple days later they were easily going to get beat down 4-on-2? I don't get it, and I don't like it.
I don't like that.
Now, I want you to keep that attack in your head, okay? Because we're going to refer to it in a little bit. On Collision, Mariah May and Toni Storm had a meeting in the ring. May got in Storm's face, saying she was nothing to her or the fans. She's a joke and a meme, and she'll get humiliated in her hometown. Storm said that she's May's biggest fan and idolizes her. She forced her to hug, which Mariah accepted, only to slap Toni across the face twice and then hit her with the AEW Women's title 8 times. Brutal attack, right? Really good, high quality. Storm then grabbed a mic and changed her tone into timeless. She started literally stripping into her underwear, saying the hardest role you'll ever play is yourself, and this was the performance of a lifetime. Storm said May came from her womb and would get shoved back up there after she rips her tits off. Fans popped massively for this. I similarly saw people going wild for this segment on social media. The booking of Toni playing herself, which we actually theorized upon her return, and I'm glad I did. It's great. It's such a smart and unique character turn. And the ultimate reveal that she did at the end with her promo was excellent. So I want to be very clear. I love the concept. I love the way this started, and I love the way it ended. But I was flummoxed by the middle. And perhaps I missed something. But the whole point of playing coy is to catch your opponent by surprise and strike when they aren't looking. Wouldn't this have been far more effective if Mariah accepted the hug and laughed at Toni and started pitying her because she's now a loser, that she's completely ruined, only for Storm to catch her blind from behind and then beat the shit out of her and then cut this promo with Mariah laid out on the canvas? Instead, she got her ass beat and then just said, oh, by the way, I was playing you. The point is, she didn't use her advantage in any way. She didn't attack Mariah, get her to award the title match thinking that Toni is pathetic. She didn't do anything. So while Storm's acting in the reveal was great, I feel the situational aspect of this was a huge miss. And furthermore, why are you doing this 3 weeks out from your B show? And why are you doing it on an episode that got 250,000 viewers up against WWE Saturday Night's Main Event, by the way? It's basically the best storyline your company had in 2024. This should be center stage 2 weeks out on your A show that gets triple that rating. Burying this and then the way it transpired just did not make sense at all. The entire segment, if you have said it in totality, yes, it was great. May and Storm both totally delivered. The crowd popped huge. But the actual way it played out, if we're being legitimately critical and logical, and the timing of it, the day it was on and the week it happened, it really felt like a missed opportunity to add logic and eyeballs to a great twist on an entertaining story. And it's really unacceptable that they didn't nail this and knock it out of the park. On Dynamite, Mariah suggested Huntsville be called Cuntsville. Edgy. She yelled that Toni is not real. May reminded Storm that she got the best of her and made her bleed in her hands. That was the follow-up. Huge angle on the B show. Short promo on the A show. Did not advance the story at all. It doesn't make sense.
I hate this. I hate this crap. Stop. Stop with the crap.
I miss Eddie Kingston, by the way. On Collision, Jon Moxley ranted to his wife and Claudio Castagnoli in this quick segment that was a snippet of an interview that is apparently available on YouTube. He went off about building 1,000 versions of himself in the locker room and how AEW is supposed to be about great professional wrestling and all this other stuff. Then on Dynamite, we got another interview snippet with Mox asking why fans need to see the AEW title when they understand what it means to be champion. He said he is the physical embodiment of it. It's not something you win, it lives in your heart. This preceded the part that we already discussed. They aired it again. It seemed to be a more comprehensive and compelling explanation of his motivation. But why are they forcing us to go to YouTube for the rest of it when the storyline is actively struggling on television week to week? It's nonsensical. Even if his motivation now is like 20% clearer after those 60 seconds or 90 seconds, why should I care about that as a viewer? Why do I care that he wants to be the physical embodiment of the title? Doesn't affect me. So someone beats him and then they're the physical embodiment of the title. He's putting the championship on the line. You know, it's not like he's not defending it. So, yeah, the story just remains convoluted. On Dynamite, Hangman Page stormed into Swerve Strickland's locker room, not finding him. Then he bumped into MJF for a brief stare down. MJF ranted about fans loving Hangman no matter what he does, while MJF, if he breathes funny, people get on his back. Max said he would love to prove to Jeff Jarrett on the show that he needs his help to win the AEW title. Despite not that much actually happening here, this was the freshest segment that AEW has put on TV in a long time. Backstage felt alive, even if there were literal extras in the background rather than just other talents. Hangman looking for Swerve, seemingly for positive reasons, maybe even to make amends. That was obviously interesting. Has to be a huge moment if and when that happens. And this is now 2 weeks in a row that they're teasing Hangman and MJF, which is obviously a massive feud for both guys. On Dynamite, Jeff Jarrett fought Claudio. Double J reversed a sharpshooter only for Wheeler Yuta to distract while throwing a chair into the ring. Jarrett ducked the chair and set up for the stroke, only for Mox to run in and hit Paradigm Shift. Claudio then added 2 neutralizers for the win. Total silence from the crowd at the end bell. Literally. The big bad Death Riders, the faction taking over AEW and holding it hostage, guys who are asphyxiating people and trying to murder them. They needed 3 guys to beat 57-year-old JEFF JARRE Where the hell were Adam Copeland and FTR, by the way? They don't give a shit. A few fans chanted Double J after the bell. That was it. MJF came down, took his head off with a lariat, taking out a 57-year-old who just wrestled and got the shit kicked out of him by 3 dudes with a lariat. My Lord.
That is one big pile of shit.
Jay White beat Yuta, catching a Bazaiku knee and countering it into a Blade Runner. White sold the knee well through this match, and it was actually nice for him to get a clean win without incident. Fans were absolutely silent during this match. Shockingly so, because White is usually over. He hit Yuta with a second Blade Runner after the bell for good measure. Fans chanted for a third, but as he was about to deliver, Mox distracted with Claudio mauling him from behind. And then rated FTR saved. Where the fuck were they when Jarrett was getting his ass kicked? This was 30 minutes later on the same show. How does this make a shred of sense? Dax Harwood then grabbed a mic angry that they tried to kill 67-year-old Ricky Morton, but apparently he doesn't give a shit about 57-year-old Jeff Jarrett. Then he put over a Midnight Express wrestler in attendance who was not shown and challenged for a Mid-South street fight on Collision. They just be doing shit in AEW. Can you reference something old? Yeah, go ahead, do it. That's fine. The incongruence between this and the prior segment was honestly ridiculous.
Come on, Oos. It's a joke, right? It's a joke, Oos. You ribbing me?
On Dynamite, there was a video package for Gun Club that just included some highlights of their career and them training. No information on why they've been out, their motivation to come back, or anything. We'll see what happens when they return. On Dynamite, Ricochet was backstage wearing, I don't even know how to describe what he was wearing, half a cape and 1 shoulder pad. Who the hell dressed him in that? He learned that Swerve would forfeit their match next week if he interferes in Rick's match. Then he demanded a formal interview on Saturday night, saying he was being bullied by getting put in a wrestling match by the people who employ him to wrestle. So Ricochet fought AR Fox, I guess because Ricochet showed up late in that match with Swerve last week. Pretty thin. Ricochet won with vertigo, so it seems like he's gone away from that horrendous running whatever in the corner. Massive positive, at least. He pulled out scissors after the bell, only for Swerve to attack with the chain. So Ricochet grabs Fox, puts the scissors to his throat like a hostage, and avoids Swerve Stomp, and then drags him out to the back. I feel like the Ricochet character is losing a little bit of what made it work a few weeks ago. Their match next week should be superb. This segment was a bit strange. Let's get away from scissors to the throat of people. Like, I understand you're trying to be edgy and TV 14 and shit. We don't need to kind of threaten slitting people's throats on a wrestling show. On Collision, Undisputed Kingdom without the Kingdom beat Daniel Garcia, Angelo Parker, and Matt Menard. It was actually comical to see the preview package for this because it was one face group saving the other face group and then that becoming a match, which we talked about last week. Adding to the hilarity was UK interrupting the Costco guys backstage so they could do the boom together. Are these guys signed to the roster at this point? I loved what they did at the pay-per-view as a one-off, but this is kind of getting ridiculous. Kyle O'Reilly got the fall on Parker after high-low, so Parker returns, loses right away. Shane Taylor Promotions yelled at the losers. So I guess they're going to get into something. O'Reilly's going to wind up getting a TNT title match against Garcia. And Lee Moriarty, I think, is the other person out of this. What has Lee done to earn it? Nothing. O'Reilly did get the win here. I don't believe he pinned Garcia. He did not pin Garcia. I just said he pinned Parker. But he's getting another title match. How many title matches is Kyle O'Reilly going to get in AEW? I mean, it's astounding. It's one singles title match after another. He loses all of them. He never wins other matches to deserve them. It's infuriating. On Collision, Harley Cameron was in a backstage segment, also with the Costco guys, to promote a song by the Rizzler or something. When the Vendetta, these are a lot of words. The Vendetta interrupted and talked shit for a minute. Why they were being interviewed twice in one show, I cannot tell you. Then Penelope Ford and Thunder Rosa agreed to no physicality before a dual interview that got contentious. It led to Ford challenging Rosa to a match, wanting to go through a former champion and raise her profile. Sensible motivation from Penelope, no question. But it was really odd that two people would agree not to fight when they started a segment without animosity. Such a strange and unnecessary lack of logic there. On Collision, Yuka Sakazaki beat Deonna Purrazzo, Queen Aminata, and Serena Deeb to become the number one contender for the TBS title. Yuka had not wrestled in AEW nor won a singles match since September. Aminata had not won a TV match since October. Purrazzo and Deeb have mostly lost of late. Taya Valkyrie got involved, but Cameron saved and Yuka won with a crucifix. Whatever. On Dynamite, the TBS title was on the line, Mercedes against Sakazaki. Vendetta got a promo before this match, blaming Cameron for Purrazzo not being in it and promising to collect her on Saturday. Is that much of an accomplishment, beating down someone who has never won a match before? Anyway, commentary questioned whether Monet was the most decorated champion in AEW history, clearly forgetting Omega's title collector run just a couple of years ago. Ugh. Excalibur also called Eddie Guerrero one of Monet's mentors. Blatantly false. She idolized him and was inspired by him. He absolutely was not a mentor to her. And then there was this, the match introductions. I want you to listen to the introductions and I want you to listen to the crowd response.
And her opponent, from Boston, Massachusetts, she is the reigning and defending TBS champion, the CEO, Mercedes Moné.
I guess Huntsville's not a fan of people from Boston. Jeez.
I guess not. They said Boston. They went south on them in a hurry, didn't they?
I'm telling you.
It's there, man.
Jeez.
I mean, this is literally one of the best women's wrestlers in the world signed to AEW. And at worst, the number 2 woman in this company. That lack of reaction, not good. There were like 10 fans doing a CEO chant. You heard it at the very end there, but even commentary called it out. All right, to the match. This main evented, which was nice for a change. It's fair to question doing that for a wrestler in Yuka that casual viewers may not even know. Yuka did an awesome spinning front slam. Mercedes hit backstabber and statement maker before winning with Monet Maker. Solid. Didn't necessarily end the show that hot. And then that Monet Maker, man. Woof. On Dynamite, the follow-up to the Hurt Business winning the tag team titles was a taped promo of MVP recognizing Private Party, but saying they would be holding the titles for a long time while accepting any challenge, any place, anytime. The audio mixing was messed up here. The background noise was much louder than MVP speaking. And to not capitalize on a totally over team by putting them live on television the following week was just dumb. This is a consistent problem with AEW that is among its most frustrating flaws to date. These guys should have been on TV flexing the titles and laying down the law of the division, maybe even trouncing a lower card team that tries to step up to them. A huge missed opportunity. On Collision, Powerhouse Hobbs followed through, waiting for Big Bill in the parking lot, which was seemingly the entrance area for Daly's place.
Big meaty man slapping meat.
And that's what we got. Hobbs hit him with 4 unprotected baking sheet shots to the head. They quickly got separated, only to continue brawling later in the ring. Bill attacked the knee and hit Hobbs with a backpack filled with bricks. There were handcuffs that botched. Hobbs' nose bled. He got worn out with a chair. The final spot was Hobbs doing a belly-to-belly suplex off the stage through 2 tables. The opening brawl was better than the latter. It was just a little bit slow when she got around the ring, but the big spot at the end absolutely made up for it. Between this and the Jacob Fatu Braun Strowman deal,
There's a lot of beef out here.
on Saturday night, there was a lot of beef out there. Both left something to be desired. It was mostly the Fatu Strowman match I had a problem with, but all the post-match stuff and all the brawl here, it worked across both shows. On Dynamite, Hobbs cut a promo from home saying he wasn't cleared for Dynamite, but when he gets back, he'll show Bill that hell is just the beginning. Please do not tell me Hobbs is actually out for any significant period of time when he just got back and he was finally gaining some momentum. I presume they'd have written him off if that was the case. So I assume it's stitches or a broken nose or something he just needs to get tended to. I hope he's back soon. On Dynamite, Chris Jericho promoted a movie before Bill thanked him for knocking some sense into him last week and giving him fresh motivation. Jericho credited himself for being a great mentor. He actually is a mentor and wanted Bill to work harder so he could end Hobbs permanently. On Collision, Kazuchika Okada beat Commander in a non-title match. Why did they fight? Because Okada attacked him after the bell. Why? Because. On Collision, Hounds of Hell beat Gates of Agony. Cool entrance for the reformed group, which also had some updated gear. They won with a double running dropkick into the corner. Good start. Later, they actually barked together backstage. Well, the guys barked. Julia Hart didn't do anything. Okada laughed at them, saying Buddy Matthews barked like a bitch, which was actually kind of funny. That's a good usage of bitch, referring to a female dog. Buddy challenged for the title. Kazu denied, so he called him a bitch. Undeserved title match incoming, but at least there's a reason. And I'm sure as shit not going to get angry at Okada against Buddy. That is made for me. On Collision, Samoa Joe beat Nick Wayne in 5 minutes with a muscle buster. Hook and Shibata stopped patriarchy interference. On Collision, Max Caster cut a backstage promo about the events of last week being enough to ruin someone's life. He's starting an open challenge series to prove he's the best wrestler alive. I actually don't mind this gimmick, but his delivery, the way he's going about creating this character, it's really leaving a lot to be desired. Maybe there will be a switch flipped or something like that, but I'm still kind of waiting for it. Also, nothing from Anthony Bowens coming out of last week, and he's the one with the whole pride of AEW gimmick and the energy that he showed. He's the one I wanted to hear from. He's the one I wanted to see wrestle this week, and I didn't. On Collision, Top Flight backstage were angry they couldn't find Leo Rush in Action and Andretti. Then Darius Martin got angry at Dante, saying Action was good for them, but his boy Leo messed up the group. Darius actually had some juice behind him here. I still struggle to care about it at all, but this was more interesting than it's been to this point. So that wraps up AEW this week. There were a couple really big moments and good moments on the shows. I'm so disappointed. I'll just repeat it one more time that the Tony and Mariah booking just did not go all the way around and complete the logic circle. It got like 75% of the way there, but that bit in the middle was such a miss. And given this is the biggest storyline the company had, maybe not the biggest, the best storyline the company had in 2024, and they're continuing it early in 2025. They're going to Australia. Presumably, Storms was going to win the title in her hometown. You really needed to nail this 100%, and it's so frustrating that they did not. Besides that, the 3 faction attacks at the end of matches and the lack of consistency to when FTR does save, rated FTR, when they do save and when they don't save, and then Omega and Ospreay, no one having their backs, that just all really frustrated. It left a lot to be desired, and it remains repetitive. This Death Riders booking is really, really not helping. So, like I said, that completely wraps up AEW. And that wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Let me remind you, we will be back on Saturday's special episode, your 2025 WWE Royal Rumble instant analysis. We will break down every single match on the show. We'll start previewing WrestleMania 41. It is a barn burner. We love doing the Royal Rumble instant analysis. Vintage Chris Vanini will be there live in Indianapolis, and with a 6 p.m. Eastern start time, hopefully we can actually get that show out, and the Silver King can still get plenty of rest before he heads over to New Orleans the following morning. Let us remind you to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky, not only for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, and all of that good stuff, but so you can send in questions and comments for the show, particularly during the Royal Rumble. And on Twitter, you can vote in our pre- and post-show polls on the Royal Rumble, which we do factor into our instant analysis episode. Of course, before the Royal Rumble even begins, make sure you listen to our 2025 WWE Royal Rumble Ultimate Preview episode, which is waiting for you in the podcast feed. Also, remember to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. We not only have full audio of our shows on there, if you prefer to listen on that platform, we are posting clips from all of our old interviews, and we are moving into a huge slew of new interviews. In 2025, we will post the complete video interviews on that YouTube channel. We hope to start being able to monetize it, and perhaps we will even tape the show on video as well. We will find out. Please remember that here at the Getting Over Wrestling Podcast,
It's all about Defy.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Support the continuation of the Getting Over Wrestling Podcast. That is where the financial commitment goes. It's not about the content that we're providing you, that we do provide you extra content. It's about supporting the show. It has been ad-free for 5 years. We want to keep it that way. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the show. We will be back on Saturday, but at this point, it is time for the Silver King to sign off and leave you with 3 final words. Bye for now.